How's it hanging, Ram fans? Welcome back to yet another week of Monday Night Sports. I'm Madeline Davis.
And I'm Brendon Fairbairn. CSU rolled into Toledo at 0-2, desperate for a win. Were they able to get their first victory of this season? Wait and see.
Volleyball battled things out with rival CU in a weekend doubleheader. We'll get you caught up on everything that went down.
And to end off the night, we'll duke it out in Hot or Not. All of that and more in CTV Sports, starting right now. On Saturday, CSU football traveled over 1,000 miles east to take on the Toledo Rockets. This might be a surprise to many Ram fans, but this road trip ended up as a very successful one, where CSU got a much-needed victory 22-6 to grab their first win of the year. With a score like that, it's obvious that this one wasn't pretty by any means. But hey, they got the job done, and for a team that's struggling like this one, that's all that matters. In front of 21,000 fans at the Glass Bowl, the offense struggled all day, despite having some strong performances by Trey McBride and David Bailey. For the third straight game to start the season, McBride had over 100 yards receiving, and running back David Bailey produced his first 100-yard rushing game as a Ram, going for 132 yards on the ground. But on the other hand, quarterback Todd Centeo was off target most of the day, completing just 11 of 27 passes for 108 yards and rushing for another 62. And while CSU's offense wasn't able to get into the end zone, their special team unit was. After two muffed punts by true freshman Garrick Robinson, senior Thomas Panunzio was given punt return duties for the rest of the game, and he did not disappoint, returning a punt for a 70-yard touchdown late in the third quarter to give the Rams the lead and the momentum to finish the game strong. And speaking of special teams, the leading scorer for the Rams was junior kicker Caden Camper. After a rough start to the year, going 1 for 4, he made all 5 of his field goals for a career high, drilling kicks from 31, 42, 29, 47, and 23 yards out to give the Rams 15 points for the afternoon. On the other side of the ball, CSU's defense played one of their best games in a very long time, limiting Toledo to only 284 yards of total offense and just 22 on the ground. The Rams' defensive line was all over the field, producing 6 sacks and 10 tackles for loss, and Mohamed Kamara led the charge with 2.5 sacks, while linebacker Daquan Jackson put up an impressive 13 tackles. And in true freshman Jack Howell's first career start, he had 9 stops of his own. And after the upset win, the Rams move on to this week's opponent, who has to be their hardest since they took on Alabama in 2017, traveling to Iowa to take on the Hawkeyes. The number 5 team in the nation. Going into Big Ten country won't be easy, that's for sure. But we'll just have to see how CSU does in this hostile environment. At least for this week, Ram fans can enjoy a sweet, sweet victory. I don't know about you, Madeline, but I am definitely enjoying this win because I don't know how many more wins we're going to get this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, it was really fun for me to see my first win at CSU.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I agree. I really hope they keep it within 40 points against Iowa.
I agree, yeah. Now shifting our focus to volleyball. After what was seen as a miraculous win for the football team, the Lady Rams weren't even close to as successful in their home-and-home series against CU. CSU started things against their heated rival on Thursday up in Boulder, where they ended up losing decisively 1-3. Things started off strong for the Rams in the first set, going for a .222 hitting percentage and 16 kills on 36 swings. But the Buffs ended up mounting a late comeback, going on a 5-0 run to take a 22-21 lead. But it wasn't held for long. CSU won 3 out of the last 4 points to take that first set, 25-22. Unfortunately for the Ram fans, though, this momentum wasn't continued going into set number 2. CU came in with an axe to grind and took an early 13-7 lead, never looking back. The Rams did come within 3 at one point, but it just wasn't enough. The Buffs ended up finishing out the second set with a score of 25-18. And after a back-and-forth start to this one, this match was all CU. The third set was tied 8-8 at one point, but after the Buffs took a 15-10 lead, the Rams had no answers, losing the third 25-19. To end off the night, the start of the fourth set looked promising for CSU, going up on the Buffs 6-3 at one point. But after a 4-0 rally, CU gained some confidence that got them to take a 10-9 advantage. Now the Rams battled back several times in this one, including a 17-16 lead at one point. But another 4-zip run by the Buffs secured the match for the home squad. Colorado State was led by redshirt junior Jackie Van Leefda, who had 15 kills, and fellow redshirt junior Sierra Pritchard, who led the team with 39 assists and 13 digs to secure her 4th double-double of the season. Sadly for Ram fans, these strong efforts weren't enough to pull out the dub. And with the loss at Boulder, the Rams came to Moby on Saturday with the Golden Spike on the line. To start the afternoon off, the first set looked promising for CSU faithful, seeing the home team take a 4-point lead out of the gate, thanks to 2 service aces from sophomore Ruby Kaiser. On theme for this doubleheader, though, the Rams' lead was short-lived, with the Buffs coming back quickly and never looking back, taking things 25-23. After the disappointment, CSU came out swinging in set number 2, which saw 12 ties and 5 lead changes. But after 12 errors from the girls in green, CU was able to get it done 27-25. Even down 0-2, the third set was no different, with 9 ties between the in-state rivals. In the end, they fought hard, but the Rams were just unable to pull out a set against the 25th ranked Buffs, falling 25-22 to secure a straight set win as the road team. Junior Annie Sullivan led the Rams with 16 kills, while redshirt junior Jackie Van Leefda was right behind her with 11 of her own. Even with the back-to-back losses, Rams head coach Tom Hilbert maintained an optimistic outlook on his team's performance, saying, quote, "The match was exciting. We had a number of goals that we wanted to improve upon tonight from Thursday. I think we did a good job at driving balls against them harder today than we did in Boulder, and you could tell." End quote. Now, I'm sure CSU faithful would have loved to see the Lady Rams grab at least one win against their heated rivals. But look at this way. They battled hard against a top 25 team who is undefeated on the season. For a young squad like this, you have to take it week by week and cherish the small victories. The Rams will be back at Moby to take on the Boise State Broncos this Thursday at 7 p.m. to kick off Mountain West play. Well, Brendon, they did lose, but I thought that there were quite a few highlights, and the set scores were really close, so I thought that was good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Colorado, top 25 team in the nation. I know they lost both their sets, but I think they could build off it and take that into Mountain West play once they play the Broncos.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, and speaking of the Broncos, I'm switching it up to the pros. The Denver Broncos are 2-0 for the first time since 2018, after beating the Jacksonville Jaguars 23-13 at Everbank Field. For the second straight week, Teddy Bridgewater was very impressive, throwing for 328 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and most importantly, 0 picks, all leading to an amazing 125.6 passer rating. Teddy connected with Tim Patrick and Noah Fant in the red zone for the Broncos' only 2 touchdowns on the afternoon. Through these first 2 games, I love how calm, cool, and collected Bridgewater has looked, especially when the pocket starts to break down. He protects the ball while making the right moves, and is exactly what the Broncos have been looking for at quarterback since Peyton Manning retired. In other uplifting news, Courtland Sutton had his first breakout game since the ACL injury he suffered last season, putting up 9 catches for an impressive 159 yards. He almost had 2 touchdown catches as well, but couldn't connect with Bridgewater on some deep passes. Rookie Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon split reps at running back, both getting 13 carries and combining for 95 yards to create a solid running attack. You also can't forget about this stellar defense. They also put in a solid performance this time against the Jaguars offense and rookie quarterback Trevor Lawrence. But things didn't start out great at first when Lawrence threw a 25-yard touchdown pass to Marvin Jones Jr. on their opening drive to open up a 7-0 lead. But after that, the Broncos regained their footing, holding Lawrence to only 118 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. The Jags' only other touchdown came on special teams when Jamal Agnew returned a 100 late in the fourth quarter. The electrifying return wasn't enough for the Jags to come back, though, with the Broncos running out the clock on the next possession to close things out. After the Chiefs lost to the Ravens last night for the first time in September since Patrick Mahomes became the starter, the Broncos and Raiders are now the only AFC team that are still undefeated. Next week, they'll take on another rookie quarterback when Zach Wilson and the New York Jets travel to Denver for the Broncos' first home game of the season. Ella will have a bit more on Wilson's struggles later on in the show. Now that Zach Wilson, after he threw 4 interceptions, I'm confident that the Broncos will start the season 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I know that like the Jets in the past just don't have a very good record.
Yeah. Yeah, even last year when we went and played in New York, we beat the Jets pretty soundly. Melvin Gordon ran all over them, and I'm pretty sure Tim Patrick had a great day against them.
Yeah, for sure. The Broncos weren't the only Colorado team that was successful on the road this weekend. The Rockies took 2 out of 3 against the Washington Nationals for the series win. After an atrocious season on the road, Colorado finally found some success away from Coors Field, going 7-2 on their final extended road trip of the year. After their game the day before was rescheduled due to inclement weather, Germán Marquez ended up getting the start in D.C. instead of Atlanta, and he did not disappoint. Colorado took an early 2-0 lead in the top of the first when Garrett Hampson scored on a Charlie Blackmon double and Brendan Rodgers got in on a C.J. Cron sac fly. Even with the early lead, though, the Nationals responded quickly, getting on the board in the bottom of the first when Juan Soto scored on a Yadiel Hernandez single that was immediately followed up by a Keibert Ruiz double that allowed Josh Bell to score easily from third. This score held for a couple periods before a big fourth inning from D.C. saw the Nats score 4 runs on 5 hits, including a 3-run shot from Lane Thomas. But the Rockies responded with a busy inning of their own in the top of the 6th, one that included a 2-run home run from Sam Hilliard that allowed them to take a 7-6 lead on Washington. In the bottom of the 8th, Washington took the game back into their own hands, taking an 8-7 advantage after Lane Thomas scored on a Josh Bell ground ball. Fortunately for Colorado, though, the Nats bullpen couldn't close this game out. Catcher Elias Diaz hit his 18th home run of the year to tie the game 8-8. And later in the inning, Sam Hilliard scored on a Brendan Rodgers single that secured the win for the visitors. Colorado obviously rode the momentum they gained from Friday night as they headed into Saturday's game, which they took decisively 6-0. In this one, the Rockies came out swinging, grabbing a quick 2-0 lead on a Brendan Rodgers home run, which was followed later in the inning by a Carter Kieboom error, allowing C.J. Cron to race home from third. The other 3 runs were scored a couple innings later on a Trevor Story opposite field homer that allowed the Rockies to take a 6-0 advantage, one that they held for the rest of the matchup. This great offensive performance was also backed up by some awesome pitching. Lefty Kyle Freeland racked up his 500th strikeout of his career, and the Colorado bullpen only gave up 1 hit. Game 3, on the other hand, was a bit more of a familiar feeling for Rockies fans, seeing the Nationals take Sunday's finale 3-0. DC took a quick lead on a Yadiel Hernandez single in the bottom of the first, which was backed up a couple innings later by a solo shot from star right fielder Juan Soto. Colorado had instances with runners on third in the sixth, with Ryan McMahon up to bat and the bases loaded, and later again with CJ Crone up in the eighth. But unfortunately, the Washington bullpen was able to keep Colorado from ever reaching home plate. With their last extended road trip of the year behind them, Colorado is looking forward to their last homestand of 2021, which begins tomorrow night at 6:40 against the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'll have to see how they close things out. Well, Brendon, as a Rockies fan, that was actually really nice to see, considering they've had such a terrible road record, like actually getting 3 series wins on the road.
Yeah, I know. They had like one of the worst away records. Thankfully, one of the best home records.
Yeah.
But it's sad we're not seeing them in the playoffs this year. I really miss Rocktober. It's been, 3 years now? So, hey, there's always next year.
Let's hope.
I agree. Well, Rams, it's time for a break. When we come back, I'll give you a look at how tailgating has returned to campus. You won't want to miss it.
Looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September. I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table. I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Welcome back from the break, Ram fans. Before I jump into my picks for my 2 fantasy football players you should pick up on waivers this week, let's take a look at how the return of fans has brought some much-needed life back into CSU athletics. I caught up with some Ram fans and got to hear their thoughts on how they feel about tailgating finally being back.
Go Rams! Let's go!
Tailgating before every home football game at Colorado State has been tradition for decades. But due to COVID-19, Ram fans had to wait 644 days before they could safely party again. For these CSU students, they couldn't be happier that tailgating is finally back.
I think all these kids really missed this, and being able to come out and do it how they want to do it means a ton to every single one of them.
Honestly, seeing like the school culture right here, like seeing everyone like, as a community working together, just like celebrating school pride. I've never experienced this kind of like community before. Like everyone's just like celebrating the same exact thing.
The positive football culture at Colorado State brings in fans from all over the nation, from alumni to opposing visitors.
Well, I missed it. I haven't been back in 2 years, missed last year obviously, and as a season ticket holder especially, I love being back here, and I live in Florida.
The party, the getting together with people you know, having a few drinks, good food, everything that's involved, meeting a lot of people.
Even with a program that has seen its fair share of struggles over the last several years, the passion for tailgating does not change.
But what makes it different is that people are passionate about the school, and when they're passionate about the school, it shows in sports.
Man, tailgate's really good for the community. It gets us really riled up before the game, getting everybody get back together. It's great for camaraderie.
Right now, CSU sits at 1-2. But no matter what their record is, one thing's for sure, Ram fans will always turn out for a good tailgate.
Go Rams!
Tailgating is one of my favorite traditions in football. You can't beat hanging out with friends, enjoying some great food, and of course, watching some football. But of course, you can't talk about the old gridiron without some fantasy football. So let's get into my fantasy picks for the week. In the second week of NFL action, we sadly saw a lot of players go out with injuries. But that means you need to pick up some players on the waiver wire more than ever. And with the numbers he's put up these first 2 games, Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Derek Carr is a must for your team. And he's only owned in 26% of leagues. In his last 2 games, Carr has 4 touchdowns, 817 yards, and 0 interceptions. To put that in perspective, that is 24 fantasy football points in both games. That is absolutely absurd for a quarterback, of course, unless your name's Kyler Murray. And Derek Carr does have some deep threats with Henry Ruggs, Darren Waller, arguably the best tight end in the league, and a security blanket with Hunter Renfrow. They also have a great running back core, 2 Alabama products. I thought that was a great pickup out of Arizona. He's a great 1-2 punch and sets up the play action pass for Carr. And I'm not saying Carr is a starter every week, but he is good for depth and insurance just in case your starting quarterback gets hurt. And he also plays Miami in week 3, so he could be a star when he rides his hot streak. My next pick is Arizona Cardinals rookie wide receiver Ron Delmore. He is a deep sleeper that you have to grab right now. He is only owned in 20% of leagues, which makes sense given that he is a rookie and it is only week 2. But in week 1, he had 11 fantasy points, and in week 2, he had 25 fantasy points. And he only played 46% of the snaps, and he still led the team in targets and yards. That is very impressive, given that the Cardinals have DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Green, and Christian Kirk. I truly believe his production should really go up, given his speed and his route running abilities. He reminds me of Tyreek Hill and KJ Hamler, just a little bit bigger and just a little bit slower. And Rondale Moore plays the Jaguars next week, and we saw what the Broncos did to him. So if you're in a deeper league and you're looking for a flex option, Rondale Moore is your guy. Well, that's all my waiver wire additions this week. Next Monday night, I will have 3 more players for you to pick up for week 4. And don't go anywhere just yet. Ella is up next to get you caught up on all the sports action you won't want to miss this week.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate. You okay? Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
What's up, fellow Rams? Welcome back from the break. My name's Ella Fredrikson, and I'll be joining Brendon and Madeline here every so often to give you a rundown on some things to look out for the week. Here on Where to Watch. Let's get into it. Coming away with a win on the road, the Rams travel for yet another week to take on the Hawkeyes this Saturday at Kinnick Stadium. Both squads ended Saturday with large victories, with Iowa easily defeating Kent State with a final score of 30-7. And our very own leaving the Glass Bowl with a 3-possession lead, 22-6. Regardless of how CSU did last weekend, though, ESPN's matchup predictor holds the green and gold chances at victory at a strong 3.9%. Todd Centillo and the rest of the Rams will have to hold on to the momentum that the win against Toledo brings behind if they want to successfully enter the sea of yellow and black. In other news, the topic of football continues as the NFL begins to get into the groove of its new season. Being able to welcome fans back into stadiums across the country is certainly something I missed and can imagine those on the field did too. The NFC and AFC West have both started the year on fire, proving themselves as the divisions you will certainly want to follow throughout the year to keep up with competitive races. In terms of who I'm wanting to keep an eye out for, Matthew Stafford and the Rams, along with Derek Carr and his Raiders, are 2 teams that have been so fun to watch in their first 2 games. Hey, I get it. Rooting for an AFC West team other than Denver's own is a crime here on the Monday Night Sports Show. But hear me out. The Raiders and their tough schedule might be enough to help slowly push Denver back to the top of the division. Plus, they still have to play twice later in the season. On the still entertaining but not so hot other side of the NFL, my very own Packers and the NFC North have not quite taken off yet. And with how these squads are playing, maybe they never will. In Week 1, the Midwest combined for a total of 140 points allowed, while responding with just barely half of what their defense gave up. With the Chicago Bears sneaking by with a win yesterday and the Lions-Packers game going on right now, the division's winless first week of the year is no more. Now, it wouldn't be the NFL without some major stars getting hurt. Week 2 saw guys like TJ Watt and Jarvis Landry go down in pain, and QBs were not safe either. Tyrod Taylor, Andy Dalton, and Tua Tagovailoa all left their games for good on Sunday. Through all of the attrition, what's my biggest concern, you might ask? Tua being carted off the field due to a rib injury during what turned into a shutout victory to the Bills. Remember, number one missed time last year with a broken thumb and has an injury history dating back to his days at Bama. Hopefully for Fins fans, their young signal caller can return to action sooner rather than later. Moving things along, as with every season, there is a huge mix of veteran and rookie QBs making their starts on the field. And through 2 games, it's clear who has seen the big leagues before and who maybe still has some jitters. Number 2 overall, Zach Wilson is not the only one struggling with his NFL transition. Patriots quarterback Mac Jones is the only rookie that has had a passing attempt without an interception, with the rest of them at least having one. And of course, Wilson is tied for the league lead in picks after an astounding and almost unbelievable 4 interceptions yesterday against the Pats. Fellow rookie Trevor Lawrence also has 5. With all of that INT talk past us, my NFL game to watch this week has to be when Tom Brady's first big win as a Ram against arguably the best team in the league. We'll see. And wow, even though it is only week 2, I am ready to give my Super Bowl prediction. Now, I know what you're thinking. Things change and injuries happen. And a repeat Bucs vs. Chiefs Super Bowl is something anyone could tell you. It's not a crazy guess by any means, but it is my take regardless. Each week I join Madeline and Brendon here. I'll be tracking the progress of this guess to see how close Brady and Mahomes are on making their trip to Super Bowl 56. And now sprinting into some more pro sports news, the MLB regular season is coming to a close in the next couple weeks. With 2 tight wildcard races and some surprise hot streaks sprinkled in there, this might be the most exciting postseason in a while. Unfortunately, for those who love baseball, though, fan favorites like Shohei Ohtani, possible MVP Bryce Harper, and talented rookie Fernando Tatis Jr. are not guaranteed a playoff spot. But with a couple series still left to play, you can't count any of them out. In pro baseball, peaking at the right time is key. Squads with a rough start have plenty of time to recover and make a name for themselves in August and September. Look at St. Louis, for example. The Cards started the season absolutely horrible, but are now starting to feel themselves, winning their last 8 in a row to stay in the running for a wild card spot. And speaking of teams on a tear, continue to follow the red-hot Rays and Dodgers, and keep up with the action this week to see if the Giants could be the first team to surpass 100 wins on the year. In terms of what to expect in the playoffs, it pains me to say this, but I see the Houston Astros making a run to the World Series. And when we see them there, hopefully they keep things somewhat clean this time. What could possibly make their scandal of a few years ago even more embarrassing is a rematch and loss to the Dodgers in this World Series. And just over a month from now, I believe it's these 2 teams that are going to be battling it out for another ring. And with that, that's all I have tonight. But don't leave just yet, Ram fans. After the break, join Madeline and Brendon for their hot takes of the week.
Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably going to turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Sorry, Ram fans, we do not have time for Hot or Not, but don't worry, next week we will be back. But that's all the sports action we have for you tonight. Tune in tomorrow for Tuesday Night News to see what Brandon has for this week's Bleacher Beat. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your Monday.